There is no question the big story of the day yesterday was the Jake Retzlaff sexual assault story. Big update on that story. A big update on that story. So you'll remember, and if you don't, let me reset the table for you. BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff was accused of a heinous sexual assault, not in a criminal matter, in a civil matter, where a Jane Doe, that means an anonymous victim, is asking Jake Retzlaff to pay her upwards of $1.2 million in a settlement, accusing Jake Retzlaff of sexually assaulting her 18 months ago in his apartment off campus at BYU, saying that he choked her, that he sexually assaulted her. She said no. All of these things. She says in part of this filing, she says that the Provo Police Department told her that victims never get justice and she should not pursue prosecution, which we all wondered aloud yesterday on the show. What about her civil rights? What about the fiduciary responsibility of the police department and law enforcement to pursue prosecution in cases like this to its very end? Today, the Provo Police Department released a statement saying that there was not enough evidence to pursue an investigation. I'm not telling you that that means Jake Retzlaff is guilty or innocent or anything else. I'm simply telling you it does not add up. The statement this woman released, the filings, the accusations don't, in my mind, math. I don't know what happened in that apartment 18 months ago between this woman and Jake Retzlaff, and I don't know that any of us know. But what I do know is when you accuse a police department of not doing their job, yet you don't name them in the civil suit, you don't go after them independently for a dereliction of duty, and then that police department says, well, yeah, we investigated it fully and we couldn't proceed with charges. Jake, again, I'll say the same thing today I said yesterday. It just doesn't add up to me.
Yeah, and I think it's a classic case of just making a huge mistake. I would agree that the story doesn't add up, but ultimately what you can't get away from is the decision making here and being put in this position by your own decisions. And I think that Jake Retzlaff is someone who, if you understand his path, you understand that when this happened, he was the new kid on the block in Utah and in Provo. And ultimately, my opinion is based on the story we're being told. I think Jake was looking to have a nice little get together. And things clearly went a direction they didn't need to go. Now, I don't know if that's on Jake, if that's on her, or what happened. We just don't have enough and mainly evidence to support any of these claims, number one. But number two, we also haven't heard both sides of the story. And I think that that's an important piece here. Like, obviously, Jake's attorney yesterday, came out and said that he's factually innocent and, put out a statement, so that's their stance. But we haven't heard from Jake himself, and that's not surprising, obviously. But
to be clear, his family and his attorney gave us a no comment yesterday night, and Jake Retzlaff and his family have refused to comment on the situation. Just to be clear,
which is for sure. So I think that this portion about the Provo police, saying that there was not enough evidence at that time for them to proceed with a criminal investigation, I think is also really interesting. And I think that, when we talk about this not adding up and the math not mathing, that's what I think has to get vetted out here. We need some kind of actual like corroboration or testimony or something that gives us a real good idea of what actually took place. Because if we knew, just as an example, if one of his teammates or the girl's friend that was with her that night before she left, if we could get their side of the story about how things were going but when they left, or like just context of the situation, even that would help. But I just feel like we're in this spot where all the allegations are out there. The Provo police has weighed in. He just said what Jake's family and representation said. Like, we're just kind of sitting here waiting now for this process to play out. And, the unfortunate part is when you're involved in these types of things, the waiting is the worst part. It would be great for everyone involved if the trial could be tomorrow, honestly.
And I'm going to say again what I said yesterday about BYU. After doing some probing and talking to some folks, I don't believe they had any idea this was coming. I don't think that they had been tipped off. I just don't think they knew this was happening. And if you believe what's being put out there, I don't think the Provo Police Department knew this was Jake Retzlaff. I don't. She was apparently not cooperative. She was not easy to get in touch with, according to the police. I don't think the Provo Police Department knew this was Jake Retzlaff. They knew a football player at BYU was in the conversation. I mean, it could have been anybody on that roster as far as the Provo Police Department knew.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think BYU knew, because they would have taken swift action had they known, because he was not a superstar at the point that this all went down. Remember that, in fact, at this point, he hadn't even won a game as a starting quarterback at BYU.
Yeah, he just hadn't spent much time on the field at this point.
Yeah, he wasn't at that point. I guess he would have been 0-4 as a starter, right? And he had certainly not had the breakout year yet last season. So the idea that a star was being sheltered, I just don't think that holds water.
You guys remember, when this took place, this was the Keaton Slovis, Jake Retzlaff backfilling Keaton Slovis time in the program. That's what was going on. So yeah, I mean, the whole concept of, I saw some people, keyboard warriors and stuff saying, oh, well, he's a star quarterback and is getting special treatment. No, dude, actually, he wasn't a star quarterback then.
He wasn't even a name at that point.
Yeah. And by the way, I think the biggest question, and the funniest thing is, everyone was saying, well, where's Jerry? Where's Bohannon? Where's, that's what everyone was saying. So
how about not on the roster?
Yeah. So I just think that everyone was talking about other quarterbacks that could back up Keaton Slovis, whether they were on the roster or not. We all remember those conversations, and he wasn't the star that he is now. So,
no, Jake Retzlaff was November of 2023. He hadn't won a game. So I don't know. It just doesn't math. What scares me on the Jake Retzlaff side of this, what really scares me is every new piece of information that's come out makes it seem like there's not a lot of credibility here. It seems like if the Provo Police Department, and this is what I'm stuck on, the Provo Police would not talk to me today. I want you to understand, I have called everybody involved in this. I called the Jane Doe's attorneys. I got a no comment and a he'll call you back, and I still haven't gotten a call back. I called the Provo Police Department. I called BYU. I've called everybody I can talk to. I called Jake's attorney again this morning. I understand why it's no comment. I totally get it. But in talking to people I know, the Provo Police Department part of this makes zero sense from the alleged victim's perspective. We went from she didn't want to cooperate. She was, too scared. Right? Remember, because originally she didn't want to cooperate and give the cops his name. She was scared that they would go over there and out her. Then she gave them his name, and they told her victims never get justice, don't go forward. To then the Provo Police Department releasing a statement last night saying there was insufficient evidence to investigate. Well, the Salt Lake Tribune says Jake Retzlaff put on a condom and had forcible sex with this woman. She has bruises on her neck, thighs, and he bit her lip. That alone, and this is the question I'm asking because we don't have the information, that alone is more than enough evidence to investigate rape. She got a rape kit. There's bruising. There was, as Jake properly pointed out, probably at least half a dozen people who saw her and Jake together that night. Her phone, which was charging at Jake's apartment at that time, can geo-track her. So we know where she was and what time she was there, what towers her phone pinged on. What do you mean there wasn't enough evidence? So is the Provo Police Department lying, or is the alleged victim not being totally honest?
Yeah, and the obvious thing that stands out is, what were the results of the rape kit? Like, there was no, like, shouldn't the rape kit prove his innocence one way or the other?
Where is
it?
Where is the rape kit?
Like that's the whole point, right? I mean, the whole point is, hey, I'm coming in to do a rape kit because this just happened and we need proof. We need evidence.
And I just continue. I'm going to keep saying this over and over again. Jake Retzlaff made a massive mistake here.
Yes.
This is 100% Jake Retzlaff's fault. He put himself in a situation of massive exposure. You cannot, as a professional football player, message with a woman on Instagram and then have her over to your apartment and then be alone with her in your apartment. Because we don't know what happened. And you are a target. You have everything to lose. She has everything to gain. And now, my guess is, and my opinion is unchanged, Jake Retzlaff can never play another down at BYU. The very fact that this woman says he reached for a condom and then forcibly raped me, it's over. Because you can't argue, well, coach, it was consensual. You sign an agreement to live a chaste lifestyle when you go to BYU. And football is meaningless when it comes to that piece of paper you sign.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you're doing is signing the honor code, and it's not just a piece of paper. It is a commitment and a pledge of a certain lifestyle. And if any of those tenets are violated, you're out. And not having sex, do you guys understand that if you are in a dorm at BYU Provo, if you're in a dorm at BYU Provo, you are not to have a member of the opposite sex in your dorm room. That's what we're talking about. This is a different way of life. That woman in this lawsuit says he reached for a condom and then forced himself on me.
And it's also worth pointing out, too, on the dorm room point, we're not exactly sure what the venue was here. It just says at his home. So I don't know if that means his dorm room or
no. It says in the report, it says apartment. The word the report I read this morning and the filing that I read from the victim, the alleged victim in this case, and let's be clear, the plaintiff, Jane Doe, who is suing Jake Retzlaff, the defendant, in civil court. This is not a criminal matter. It says apartment all over the place. So we were correct yesterday when we said it's his off-campus apartment. And I just, this does, unless Jake Retzlaff can be like, okay, well, on this date and this time, I was in Los Angeles, and you can check my scan on my 24-hour fitness membership. I was lifting at the 24-hour fitness. And if he can prove somehow he wasn't in Provo and wasn't even there, you're fine. If he was there, he'll never play another snap at BYU.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're the church, how do you justify that? This isn't Oak State and Ollie Gordon's going to run some stairs and we'll all be fine.
Yeah, it's completely different.
Jamal Williams withdrew from school after getting a ticket for possession by consumption of alcohol, possession of alcohol by consumption. What was that? 10 years ago now. Withdraws from school. Harvey Unga and his girlfriend, who was also an athlete, Harvey Unga, a running back, who was also an athlete, I believe a volleyball player. She got pregnant. They weren't married. They were done as BYU students. So you think Jake Retzlaff's going to get a free pass for this?
Not a chance.
And again, this is why I put all the liability and responsibility, and really, if blame's the word we're using, this is why I put all the blame on Jake Retzlaff. You're a student at a massive campus. Go meet somebody. Go to J-Dogs. Go to Smoke and Bones. Go to
Public.
Go out and meet somebody. You cannot, Jake or Trevor Bauer, meet a Padre fan on the internet. You cannot do this. And I just hope, and I'm not trying to be a bunch of people in the comments section yesterday night were trying to say that I was being Mr. Perfect Parent. I'm not being Mr. Perfect Parent. I'm terrified for your kids. I said this when we talk about driving and minorities and, minority Americans having to talk to their kids about how to deal with a traffic stop and put your hands on the steering wheel, have your license and registration in your hand at 10 and 2. This is the exact same thing. Talk to your young men. Talk to your young women. That situation yesterday I talked about with Matt Weiss at Michigan, where he allegedly hacked people's social media accounts and took their nudes out of the cloud. Talk to your kids. Talk to your kids and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this. Man, I know that you have these, friends and they're going to protect you. You have to protect you. Hey, and you remember this, you're Jake Retzlaff, the quarterback at BYU. Let me tell you a story about what happened to him. He met a girl on Instagram that he didn't know, invited her over to his apartment. They were alone together in this apartment and he didn't really know her. And she wound up accusing him of sexual assault. Hey, daughter, if you're talking to a guy and he invites you over to his apartment, you might want to bring a friend and make sure that she doesn't leave until you leave. You got to be safe.
Yeah.
Right. Like you got to talk to your kids about this stuff, man.
Well, and that's the biggest thing. I just don't think that there was, no matter what is factually borne out in this case and what actually comes from it, there's no doubt that there are multiple witnesses there that put them in the same room, right, at his apartment. Like, again, unless he can prove he was lifting weights in another part of the country that night, right? Like, so I feel pretty good that they were there. There were multiple people there. They all had to get together. Like, it's pretty clear what the event, the basis of this meeting was. So I have no issue.
Right?
I have no issue. And again, this is, this goes, I think would go against the honor code, but having, two women in your off-campus apartment,
that's an honor code violation.
So
at BYU, that's not good.
Now, any other school, that'd be a normal thing.
The other thing I want to clear this up real quick, because if you go read our comments, you go look at the way that people are reacting to this, it does not matter that he's Jewish.
Yeah.
I hope people understand that at BYU, when you're a student, you play by the rules,
bro.
Think about how many times we talked about, and I'll go back to Jamal Williams because it's a perfect example. It's everything. It's all the stereotypes. He's black. He's from the Inland Empire. He is not LDS. I don't know if he is a Christian at all, but none of that matters because you're a football player. Scratch that. You're a student who's enrolled at BYU. To be enrolled at BYU, you have to agree to live by the tenets of the honor code. It doesn't matter. There's all this argument about, hey, it doesn't matter. If football is not fifth, it's like 35th.
Yeah.
At BYU. All right. What do you guys think? Does this change your opinion of the Jake Retzlaff situation. The police say that there was not enough evidence for them to proceed.
Yeah, I think that part of it, really brings to the forefront, hey, like what I
So it
want
changes it
to.
for you.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think that them saying there wasn't enough evidence to proceed puts us down one of two paths, right? And this is kind of what you were alluding to. So either if their their stance is there wasn't enough evidence to proceed, so that either means one of two things. That means that there's some massive cover up going on here, and the Provo Police Department chose to cover this up and protect the institution, tinfoil hat material, right? Like, would be a shocking revelation if that were to be the truth. And I don't think that's the truth. What I think is there wasn't enough evidence to proceed. And something, in my opinion, something happened between Jake and this girl since that night. There was some type of communication, something like there is a reason. And this is kind of what we discussed yesterday. There's a reason this lawsuit came out when he recently got back from Israel and Jerusalem and going through all those areas.
What is nothing short of a pilgrimage for a person of the Jewish faith.
Right. So he gets home, goes on BYU Sports Nation, does the interview, talks through it. Tanner Wall is there with him, and it just happens to come out yesterday.
And once the interview was over on BYU TV, I believe it was 11 seconds later that
Yeah.
I mean, it was bam. Like, so, it was right after that interview.
So the question that's at the forefront of my mind is, okay, well, what happened between these two? What caused this?
Well, and here is the actual court filing from the woman. And you can't. It's tough to read. I understand that. So I am happy to read part of it for you. And I think the part of this that matters most is line 16. Retzlaff began escalating the situation, attempting to touch her breasts and nether regions. You go up to line 10. On or around January 22nd, 2023, Jane Doe was hanging out with friends, and Retzlaff invited Jane Doe to come to his place and hang out. Jane Doe and her friend went over to his place, line 12. That evening, went to his room to play Fortnite. While playing, Jane Doe spoke to Retzlaff's friends and teammates. Note teammates is specifically in there. Jane Doe's friend left, line 14. Later that evening, Jane Doe's friend left. Jane Doe and Retzlaff started watching a movie. Line 15, at some point they began to kiss. Jane Doe did not want to do anything more. Jane Doe tried to de-escalate the situation, attempted to slow things down, trying to pull away and saying, wait. She did not want to do anything sexual with him. Retzlaff's touching, line 18, turned into more into pinching her hard. Jane Doe pushed his hand down, but by that point, he was causing her pain. The filing goes on to talk about, that Retzlaff intentionally engaged in acts of sexual battery and assault against the plaintiff, acts considered outrageous and intolerable as they offend general accepted standards of decency and morality. Retzlaff intended to cause emotional distress as he sought his own sexual gratification. Retzlaff conduct proximately caused plaintiff to suffer severe mental emotional distress, which manifested as PTSD, depression, anxiety, horror, grief, shame, embarrassment, humiliation, and other harms. Like, I mean, this is, plaintiff hereby demands a trial by jury on all claims so triable. I mean, this is no game, friends. This is serious. And then you get the Provo Police Department saying, the paragraph 2, the civil suit includes enough details of the alleged assault for the department to identify a possible correlating case report. This is there was another report of a football player raping somebody. Our records show on November 23rd, our department received a phone report from a woman with initials AG who gave a similar account. The Provo Police Department collected evidence, was examined, and it revealed no actionable investigative leads.
And I think that's really, really important verbiage.
The evidence was examined, no actionable investigative leads. Our victim advocates followed up several times to offer service, but received no response.
That means no DNA, right? That means no links to Jake. That means that they didn't have evidence enough to connect Jake to these claims.
Yep. I am in a place where I think it is really, this is turning into a tragedy. I think it is one of those things where you just can no longer ignore stuff. You can't anymore just pretend looking at this information and looking what the police are saying. You can no longer just say, well, there's no anymore. Somebody's going to burn here.
Mm-hmm.
And who do you think that's going to be?
Well, I think that, I mean, if you're Jake, it goes without saying. I mean, if I'm him, I'm fighting this. I'm dying on this hill. I'm fighting this. I'm not like, if I'm already done at BYU, which everything, as we've talked about, kind of looks that way. Like, it'd be surprising if they allowed you to play. That's a situation like, if you're already not going to be playing at BYU, and frankly, you're not going to be able to transfer somewhere while this is still active. I'm dying on this hill. I'm defending myself. I'm saying, hey, like, there's no evidence to support any of these claims. These are all accusations that like, what evidence do you have? So you're going to have, if it is indeed true that the rape kit didn't lead to anything, and they don't have anything else to connect Jake, like that's great. Like,
you guys, the line Jake is referencing is third paragraph. Collected evidence was examined. It revealed no actionable investigative leads.
So my point is, okay, well, that's great. You're suing Jake and claiming these things. And I must say that the claim is, some of the things she says are very specific, right? There's a lot of detail here in the claims. So yeah, I would agree. We have enough to put them in the same room. Like, you have people who were there. The reality is nobody else was there when the bad stuff, the stuff she's claiming, went down.
But okay, throw out the fact that there's no actionable evidence. What did I tell you about the police department yesterday? They have a federal level, and I want people to understand this. They have a federal level responsibility to not only protect this woman, but aggressively pursue her allegations. And she claimed in her suit that they said, you don't want to pursue this, something to the effect of, you don't want to pursue this, victims never get justice, which would be a civil rights violation. And it would lead to enormous amounts of oversight and penalties of that police department. So I think it's important that the last paragraph right here above the graphic, the civil suit states that the Provo police personnel discouraged the victim from proceeding by telling her there is no justice for victims of sexual abuse, right? This paragraph right here. From everything we have reviewed, this is not true. We have a team of dedicated investigators and victims advocates whose sole mission is to provide justice to victims of sexual abuse. They do not send people away warning them there is no justice for victims. No police department is going to do, and I said this yesterday and you all said it was a cover-up. No police department is going to cover up a rape for an 0-4 quarterback. And I don't care what town and what university we're talking about. So a lot does not make sense here. We don't know what happened in that room and in that apartment. There's two people who know, and neither one of them's talking. Nor should they totally get it.
Well, one of them's talking.
Well, that's very true through her lawyer.
Yeah.
But Jane Doe, which is why, and I understand why people were so pissed yesterday that I said she should have to use her name. If this was a criminal case, I would totally agree. Jane Doe, protect her. People are stupid. This is a civil case, and the police told you there was no actionable evidence. And then when they tried to follow up with you, according to the police, you were not available and did not cooperate. So if you're going to go file a civil lawsuit for what we believe to be $1.2 million, you're going to need to put your name on paper.
And it goes without saying that we need to see the DM interaction as well, because it would not be, it would not be out of the question for these two to have had communication over DM that was more than just, hey, do you want to come and hang out?
Well, and I will go as far as to say, and I don't remember who said it. Somebody said it. It might have been somebody in the comment section yesterday made a very interesting point that you probably wouldn't have won in criminal court, but you'll win in civil court, just like OJ